This is CBC Vancouver News.
This could be a pile of cinders at this point.
The first look at the suspect in last month's arson at a Vancouver synagogue. Leaders in the Jewish community plead for help in finding who is behind it. Plus,
places where people can go and connect with their neighbors.
We got informed that this wasn't a thing that we could technically do.
Vancouver City Council tonight passes a motion paving the way for hot saunas and cold plunges to operate legally outdoors. Also,
to see it almost empty with some exercise equipment is infuriating.
My days start at 7 o'clock in the morning. They end at about 10 o'clock at night. So whenever I can get a quick hit in.
Sims Gym. Vancouver's mayor defends turning a City Hall boardroom into his workout room. Hello, I'm Tanya Fletcher. Thanks for joining us. We begin with new surveillance video of the suspect in last month's arson at Vancouver's Synagogue Synagogue on Oak Street and West 18th. This newly released security footage you're about to see is from the night it happened, May 30th, with the timestamp starting at 9:41 p.m. You can see a man wearing a gray jacket, light-colored ball cap, and a face mask walk up the front steps of the temple. He's carrying a clear bottle with liquid inside and unscrews the cap before disappearing from view. Now, less than a minute later, you'll see a bright flash, and the man quickly walks back down the stairs and out onto the street. Now, a second video showing the front entrance from a different angle shows orange flames flaring up. You can see at the top of your screen there as the man walks away. Now, investigators want to speak to anyone who might recognize the suspect in the video, as well as the driver of a beige or silver minivan seen in the area at the time of the fire. The rabbi of the synagogue, meanwhile, is pleading for help in tracking down whoever's responsible.
We need your help. There is somebody out there who employed this individual. There's somebody out there who may have taught this individual. There may be somebody out there who knows this individual as a neighbor or in some other context. This individual has a very unique way of walking, which I believe can be identified.
He says the community support they've received since the fire has been overwhelming, adding many neighbors have offered help and resources, including volunteers for a community watch. The Jewish Federation of Greater Vancouver has called this a deliberate act of hate and an attempt to intimidate the Jewish community. Tragedy now in the Kootenays. A child has drowned at Wassa Lake near Kimberley. Police say 3 children were on an inflated tube that flipped in high winds and choppy water. An 11-year-old boy couldn't make it to shore. Officers and a local resident searched the lake by boat, eventually finding the child underwater. He was given CPR and rushed to the hospital, but did not survive. Vancouver is moving to loosen restrictions around hot saunas and cold plunges. Vancouver City Council has tonight passed a motion paving the way for them to legally operate outdoors after some businesses say they were told to close. Michelle Gomez has more on the push to plunge.
In through the chest and exhale through your mouth.
Jonathan Chawla runs Gatherwell out of a Mount Pleasant parking lot. It's one of Vancouver's outdoor cold plunge and sauna businesses that are fighting for their right to plunge.
We're at 6.9 degrees Celsius. Feels like 0.
The mood boost and the energy boost, they just feel really good after.
So that's going to happen to me later.
You're going to feel so good as soon as you get out.
I hope so.
Some who plunge claim health benefits like increased blood circulation and alleviating depression and anxiety. But for Chawla, it's more than that. It's also a way to socialize and form community.
We need more third spaces in the city, so places where people can go and connect with their neighbors.
Businesses like his are currently operating in a bylaw gray area, but a motion passed by City Council Wednesday will allow them to operate with some regulations.
It's all been a little bit fuzzy because they don't have a box that we fit in.
Al Farrell runs the Good Sauna in East Vancouver. His business sees almost 1,000 users per month, but he had shut it down temporarily until the city made a decision.
I didn't really understand how it all worked, so I just thought you could go ahead and do it. It's only as we got further down the line towards October, November that we got informed that this wasn't a thing that we could technically do.
Councillor Lisa Dominato brought the motion forward. She says these businesses bring purpose to underutilized spaces like industrial areas and parking lots and should be able to operate as long as they meet certain health, safety, and environmental standards.
And there's mental benefits, physical benefits from doing these cold plunges. There's a social aspect of it.
Outdoor cold plunge and sauna businesses could begin opening in the city mid-2025, and established ones can continue operating in the meantime.
I like to do this a couple times a week, and every time I do it, it feels so good.
I'm in pain.
Michelle Gomez, CBC News, Vancouver.
Elsewhere at Vancouver City Hall, Mayor Ken Sim is defending his controversial move to convert his City Hall boardroom into a personal gym. As Chad Pawson explains, the mayor put on a bit of a show and tell to explain his decision.
Vancouver Mayor Ken Sim's gym. It's now part of his office, ready anytime he is.
My days start at 7 o'clock in the morning. They end at about 10 o'clock at night. So whenever I can get a quick hit in. But it's not just me. Everyone has access, the other councillors, people in the mayor's office.
Sim's now answering questions over this space after Green Party councillor Pete Fry posted a photo of it online. He says the mayor's office wasn't transparent about the room's conversion, saying it was used for public meetings and is now not accessible to all.
It did hit a nerve for a lot of folks, and I think it speaks more to being disconnected from the everyday realities of most people and the fact that you couldn't get away with this in any other workplace where you kind of take a public meeting room and then repurpose it for your own thing.
Other councillors say it's yet more proof Sim isn't being transparent over his office's activities.
To see it almost empty with some exercise equipment is infuriating. We have a gym at City Hall. I know because I use it regularly when I am frustrated from council and need to burn off a little steam.
Gymgate comes a day after other controversy involving the mayor. Council approved moving a staff member from the city clerk's office to Sim's office. Opposition councillors say it's now a political resource. Sim maintains it's simply clerical, needed to balance his busy schedule.
The scheduling of my activities are off the chart, insanely crazy and complicated, and literally change every 15 minutes.
While opponents are spinning their wheels about the mayor's transparency and personal gym, Sim is keeping his chin up.
Look, people play politics. We're concerned about doing what's right for the city.
Sim's priority is to build what he calls a world-class city by attracting business, investors, and visitors. That, he says, requires high energy, so having a gym at the ready is required. Chad Pawson, CBC News, Vancouver.
To provincial politics now, the opposition BC United is pledging to cut patient wait times and connect British Columbians with health care faster.
We are going to make sure that the patient is at the center of the decision making, meaning that if a patient needs to get care and are languishing on public waiting lists, we are going to get that patient care. If it's in a private clinic, absolutely.
The party says its Patient Bill of Rights will give people in the province a guarantee of transparency, accountability, and timely access to care. That includes publicly funded health care delivered at private facilities, as well as transparent access to health records and specific health care performance targets. Immigration Canada says so-called flag polling for people with postgraduate work permits is now banned. Flag polling was a loophole for new graduates to fast-track the approval of their application through border services. They did it by briefly leaving the country, then immediately turning around and coming back in. International students need this permit to continue working in Canada after they've graduated from university or college. One immigration consultant says having the permit in hand right away offers some peace of mind and that there are backlogs with the online process.
So when an applicant goes to the border and does a flag poll and files, they get their work permit right away. With this ban in place, they will be filing online just like everyone else. And from what I've seen recently, it's upwards of 90 days or longer to get that work permit.
However, Ottawa says flag polling is taking officers away from enforcement activities, leading to delays at the border. One public policy expert says this change can have a real impact on students' lives.
It seems like, to me, this policy is arising at a convenient time as a way to say, look, we're trying to manage immigration. But If they don't solve the rest of the issues, resource this processing properly, you're actually devaluing a lot of people's lives and making it much harder.
Immigration Canada tells CBC News it encourages applicants to use in-Canada application methods instead of flag polling, and that graduates will still be able to start working for a new employer while they wait for their application to process. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau spent part of the day visiting the Chilcotin First Nation in the interior. He was marking the 10th anniversary of the Supreme Court of Canada's decision to recognize the nation as title holder within their traditional territory.
It was the first time in Canada that Aboriginal title had been recognized. It took a lot of work by many, many extraordinary and dedicated leaders to get there, but you never gave up. This is what we're celebrating today, your strength and your resilience.
The Supreme Court found the Chilcotin successfully proved title by showing regular and exclusive use of the claim area. It recognized Aboriginal title in 5% of what the nation considered its traditional territory. 3 BC First Nations are urging Ottawa to return a parcel of land in Surrey to them. It follows an Agricultural Land Commission ruling to not include the land under ALR protections. As Janella Hamilton is finding out, the First Nations say that land is vital to support their cultural and economic future.
We're on the corner of 192nd and 36th Avenue in Surrey. Behind me, a 300-acre parcel of land that once belonged to the Katzie, Kwantlen, and Semiahmoo First Nations. The First Nations say this land was vital for trading before colonization. The federally owned land has been highlighted for its fertility. It's currently leased by the Heppel family, who have been farming on 2/3 of the land for more than 3 generations. The family tried and recently failed to have their portion added to the Agricultural Land Reserve. Now, for the very first time, the 3 nations have come together to renew calls to have a portion of this land returned to them to support economic reconciliation for generations to come.
Look around at our beautiful land that was taken away from us. Look around it. That was ours, and we've shared it. Shared it. It was taken, but we're respectful, so we shared it. Now what we're saying, it's ours. Now the government in Canada has to do the right thing. It is our land, it is our time.
This parcel of land that we're speaking of, it is one of the largest substantial pieces of Crown land left in our traditional territory, in our shared traditional territory. For us, the Semiahmoo, it is one of the last pieces of Crown land left in our territory. So extremely important. Here is an ideal opportunity of how 3 nations can work with the federal government to make those dreams and aspirations come to life.
Chief Chappell says the nations have had ongoing talks with the federal government over this land for years. Innovation, Science and Economic Development Canada tells CBC News it is in the process of divesting the property in accordance with the Treasury Board guidelines. It says that includes talking with all levels of government and First Nations to figure out how the land can be used. Janella Hamilton, CBC News, Surrey.
A water quality advisory is now in effect for Vancouver's Sunset Beach. Vancouver Coastal Health has closed the beach to swimming due to high levels of E. coli in the water. As Rob Easton reports, it could take a week for the beach to reopen.
Kind of horrifying. How far away is Sunset Beach from here?
It's just around the corner. It's like a typical.
We should get out.
Yeah, no.
These people are wading into English Bay because they've come to the rude realization that the waters around the point are contaminated with E. coli.
That seems rather close, but I would not swim in E. coli-filled beaches.
Vancouver Coastal has issued a water quality advisory due to the contamination, and the city has closed the beach for swimming.
E. coli is an important infection. This can cause infections of the stomach and intestines. It's going to cause infections of the skin and eyes as well. So when we see those high levels, we do quickly advise people to avoid swimming, or wading, or other immersion in the water.
The health authority says the bacteria typically comes from animal poop and sewer runoff, but they suspect the recent sewer main break in Olympic Village could be playing a role too. So that, plus the weather, has people less than eager to jump in.
There's a certain amount of fecal matter in the water at all times, right? So do I swim in this harbor? No. I wouldn't swim in any industrial harbor.
Seems like it's very cold out there, so we don't want to risk ourselves.
The beach is kind of untidy.
Cold.
Cold. Yeah. Not the ideal temperature for a beach day.
Vancouver Coastal is monitoring the beaches for further contamination. Currently, Sunset in Vancouver and Ambleside Beach in North End are the only two closed. They will reopen when the E. coli levels return to acceptable levels, which Schwann says normally takes up to a week. Rob Easton, CBC News, Vancouver.
Still ahead, WestJet has now started canceling flights ahead of possible strike action by mechanics this Friday. We'll have the very latest after the break. Stay with us. Welcome back. WestJet has now started canceling some scheduled flights ahead of a strike threat by the company's engineering mechanics. The union is threatening to walk off the job as of Friday. The airline says cancellations ensure it can safely park aircraft in a controlled manner.
There is uncertainty over what's going to happen, so therefore all our guests should call us, the airline, and check for their flights.
The airline says the union has rejected its latest pay offer. Just last week, talks broke down for the first time, and the airline canceled 40 flights, affecting some 7,000 customers. The union then called off the strike and agreed to return to the bargaining table until now. A family of badgers has made a home in an East Kootenay cemetery. The mom and her 4 babies moved in just over a week ago. Corey Bullock has more on how local officials are responding.
There's something stirring underground at the Cranbrook Cemetery, but it's less horror thriller and more David Attenborough nature documentary. A family of badgers is calling the cemetery grounds, both above and below, home.
They've found the marmot den that has been a bit of a problem for us, and yeah, they moved in, took over the marmot den.
The city of Cranbrook says it has put up barriers to warn the public of the family's presence. And even though they're hunting and digging holes near people's graves, there's not much the city can do until mom and her babies move on.
While they're denning, we won't be disturbing them, and most likely they'll move on.
According to the province, there are around 400 badgers in BC and even fewer than 100 in the Kootenay area. They're listed as an endangered species provincially and federally.
You cannot harm or harass a badger, and you cannot destroy their burrow. It's against the law under the Wildlife Act, so they're protected.
The province says it's not unusual for badgers to build a den in a golf course, backyard, or cemetery. But some people might not be so pleased that the animals are digging where their loved ones are laid to rest. CBC News tried to contact some of the family members of the graves near the badger holes, but didn't receive a response. In the meantime, the city says it hasn't received any complaints.
If they leave the den area, there might be things that we can do to mitigate them coming back to the area. And hopefully they'll just move on and we'll be able to just clean up after them and have the space go back to the way it was.
Footage of the badgers digging beside a grave went viral on TikTok. But the city is asking curious residents to stay clear, not just for the badgers' well-being, but for the public's as well.
Being that they can be aggressive, we have put up signs around the area, around their den, and just notifying that there's aggressive wildlife in the area. And we're just hoping that people will respect their space and keep their pets or dogs out of the area.
Giving the family the space that it needs and the time that it needs, and she'll move on with her kits, or if they're there a little bit longer, they'll start dispersing on their own.
She says it's likely the short-legged omnivores will move on shortly. Corey Bullock, CBC News, Cranbrook.
Here's a live shot of the much talked about Vancouver City Hall this week. Well, showers return today. How long will they last? Your 5-day forecast is coming up next.
Hi, I'm Amy Bell, and here's what's in your CBC Vancouver inbox.
CBC returns as a media partner of the Surrey Fusion Festival, July 20th to the 21st. The festival features over 50 cultural pavilions that will incorporate the theme of landmarks of the world into their displays. For more information, visit surreyfusionfestival.ca. And never miss a special programming series, event, or contest. Subscribe to CBC Vancouver's e-newsletter and keep connected with us.
The weather update is brought to you by Direct Buy Furnace. To cool and clean the air in your home, call Direct Buy Furnace. Installing Train, the most reliable heating and cooling brand.
Let's bring in our Darius Madavi for a look at the forecast. Darius, we saw those showers start up today, at least on the coast. Perhaps that's good news for the fires elsewhere in the province.
Yes, that's exactly what I wanted to talk about, Tanya, because I know people are not happy about the lack of summer weather. I have gathered as much from everybody telling me so. The frustration is shared, but in terms of the fire danger, a little bit of good news. We're also getting a drought update expected, or there's a drought update expected tomorrow, and hopefully that'll bring some more good news and hopefully, you know, make us feel a little bit better about the fact that it's not felt very summery, and it won't for a while, at least not here on the coast. Now, again, fire danger come back down quite a bit, especially for more eastern parts of the province. The south is also retreating back into that low fire danger that we've been seeing earlier, so a little bit of good news there. In terms of the precipitation that's coming to the south coast, we'll start here. You can see, again, a little bit of that continuing. For Vancouver, it's going to be returning, so let off a little bit now, going to be returning overnight tonight and then continuing into tomorrow, pretty much through the whole day. By the sort of late afternoon, evening time, we start to dry up a little bit again. As we get into Friday, sort of noon to afternoon, some of that cloud clears out as well across the more southern parts of the island and here on the lower mainland. So a little bit of sunshine coming tomorrow. This weekend is sort of a mix of sun and cloud, but there is that bit of precipitation over there, not likely to make its way to us, at least as of now. So again, a little bit of a dry reprieve. Across the province, it's a pretty similar story. Lots of precipitation, heavy in some places. That's going to continue to build and spread across the region over the next few days. And generally, we've got some cloudy times, except for up in the north where it's pretty sunny, and then maybe some precipitation coming towards the end of this week. Up to 50 millimeters expected for parts of the northeast. So again, a bit of good news for the fire situation. Temperatures expected to stay low over the next few days before slowly starting to climb back up towards seasonal towards the end of this week. But if we take a look at our conditions across the province, lots of storms, lots of precipitation possible, if not expected. Lots of sunshine at times in the morning for parts of the interior, but also those storms are possible. And here in Vancouver, again, lots of cloudy days ahead, but also some breaks for sunshine. Should be a little bit of sun here as well. I'll just draw that on.
We'll pretend. At least it's dry, it looks like, for the weekend here. Thanks so much, Darius.
Thank you.
And that is your late news for this Wednesday, June 26th. For news anytime, anywhere, download the free CBC News app. And you can always find us online. We're at cbc.ca/BC. Thank you so much for watching. Have a great night.